Hi, I'm Dr. Jamil Sayed, and on this podcast, we're going to talk about some deep stuff. I'm here to tell you that you're amazing, and often, the only person who can't see that is you. No matter who you are, what you do, or where you're from, there's greatness in you. Let's talk about it. Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Jamil Sayed, and welcome to the Transformation Starts Today podcast, where I interview leaders, champions, and high performers from all walks of life as they share their story, the lessons they've learned along the way, and empowering perspectives to help you create an extraordinary life without regret, starting today. Today we have with us Jenn Maher. Jenn Maher, a soulful prosperity coach, has overcome life's toughest challenges, from overcoming addiction, street life, to a significant business setback and huge financial loss, into lessons of resilience and growth that she is determined to share with all who yearn for more. Jenn helps entrepreneurs grow joy, freedom, and profit while building lives and careers that nourish their soul. As an entrepreneur, mother, and grandmother, her unique approach combines personal triumphs with professional expertise to guide individuals and organizations towards success and fulfillment. Committed to empowering over 1 million high achievers by the next leap year, Jenn demonstrates that true prosperity is achieved through purposeful action and alignment with one's core values. She welcomes all who aspire to reach their fullest potential on this journey with her to soulful prosperity. Jenn, such an honor to have you on our show. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, I know we got connected by a mutual friend and a client of mine, Angela Briante, so shout out to her.
Hi,
And it was,
Angela.
yeah, we had such a beautiful conversation. And then we got to have a conversation on your podcast,
Yes.
and that just got released, so people can check that out as well. And it's just been such a beautiful privilege to get to know you. And it's really interesting because my girlfriend and I are traveling, and so we're in Puerto Rico right now. And you just started our call telling me that you're in the Dominican Republic. So we're like,
I
we're right there. We're like neighbors.
Yes, yes. I love it here. This is my second home, and I do a lot of my deep work from here.
Yeah, beautiful. And so I'd love to dive right in. So for our listeners who don't know you yet, they haven't heard your story, can you please share with us who you are, what led you to where you are today? What are the lessons, the primary lessons that stood out to you that you would think would be helpful for our listeners to hear? And what inspired you to do what you do?
So when you say, who am I am a way shower. I have realized this, that in my 50s,
Mm,
that the journeys that I have gone through are for that purpose.
mm,
And so my journey started as a very, very young child, tumultuous childhood. My mother and father divorced when I was an infant. I was raised by my mom. My mom was raised by mostly aunt and uncles. Her parents gave her away when she was about 6 weeks old.
mm,
She did have a relationship with her parents. She would see them on weekends. Her dad died when she was about 13, and all of her aunts and uncles and grandmother who raised her all died before they were in their before 55. And so my mom now is like the longest living person in her bloodline. It's crazy.
wow.
So raised by a single mom who really didn't have any parental guidance uh, to tap into in raising the two children. But my brother lived mostly with my father, and I lived with my mom. And there was a lot of different boyfriends, some abusive relationships, um, not a lot of contact with my father, some contact with my father. He was very physically abusive to my brother, something I never could tolerate or keep my opinion or my mouth quiet on. He mentally and physically abused my brother, and it was just, not enjoyable for me to spend time with him. So my brother would come to us often, and he lived with us on and off. And we were some crazy kids. I mean, we were doing things at young ages, like 8 and 10, like smoking pot, smoking cigarettes, stealing. We really didn't know the difference between right and wrong. And that really led to most of I wouldn't say most, like late middle school, from 8th grade, maybe 7th grade on. Um, a lot of drugs, partying, alcohol, and for me and for him, we both dropped out of school. I dropped out of high school. And so I dropped out of high school, and I really didn't have any mentors or role models. I had a few cousins that did love me, but they were busy with their own lives. And so I had this one cousin who did come to me at some point, when I was about 19, and like, what are you doing? And why aren't you going to college? I did go to college for a very brief stint, around that age of 19. But I had already, at about the age of 18, I met a boyfriend, who I fell madly in love with, and he turned me on to what I thought was cocaine at that point, but it was heroin. And I immediately fell in love. This drug kind of cured all that ailed me, made me, forget about all my feelings of being lonely, disconnected. And fast forward, that ended up to a crack addiction at some point when crack was extremely uh, prevalent and taking over America. We had a restaurant in downtown West Palm Beach when West Palm Beach was the murder capital of the country. It wasn't what it is today. And that's where I ended up on the streets. And then I finally, after, maybe 6, 7, 8 months of living on the streets in Florida in some real insane scenarios, got arrested and extradited to New York. And or I guess I got let out on bail, and like my mom had to make an agreement, and so she took me from the plane. I got put on the plane in like what I was wearing, and get off the plane. She took me shopping, and she took me to like a rehab. And the second night into that rehab, I escaped and hitchhiked my way to Manhattan, and then I ended up on the streets of Times Square for a few months, and probably like 6, 7, 8 months. I can remember when O.J. Simpson, the car chase, I was on the streets, and like, so a lot of crazy things went down, a lot of trauma, a lot of abuse. Then I wound up pregnant under some really not great circumstances. And somehow ending up with this baby gave me a new lease on life. It gave me that purpose. For the first time, I kind of had a purpose, and I felt connected to someone, because I just never really felt connected to any other humans. And so I had the baby, and I got my real estate license while I was pregnant. And I was also doing some catering, like my own independent little service company, service for catering, like if you're having parties at your house or anything like that. And so I did that for a couple of years, and then I got married. And right when I got married, I decided to go full-time in real estate. And immediately I took off like a rocket. And I ended up pregnant with my second daughter. I did not stay married very long. And I was just on a mission to prove to the world that I was not this person that I was in my 20s and my whole entire life. And I became like Superwoman. Not so much the best mother in the world, but really the best realtor in the world, industry leader. I became a community leader. And, I did instill lots of love in my children. So I don't want to beat myself up too much. I did the best I could with what I had in those moments. Today, I am so present, and I'm the world's greatest grandmother. So, so I went into this, zone of just succeeding. And then about 10 years ago, I came up with this 7-year plan, and, make $500,000 a year, check, buy a beach house, pay it off, check, marry a husband, blah, 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 find somebody, check. But the problem with that, and while I'm grateful for most of that ended up imploding, because I skipped the part of becoming the version of yourself that these goals and these desires require. I don't like the word require, but I think you guys get what I'm saying, right? You have to have that soulful prosperity that I talk about. You have to have a purpose. You have to have fulfillment. You really, in order to be able to, manifesting is one thing, but being able to be in peace and joy and um, not live in fear of losing the money or losing the opportunity or losing your reputation, your persona, right? So the universe, because I am a way shower, decided, Jenn, you got to take this even further. And then all of a sudden, I am asked to get on a Zoom with my business partner at that time. And he made some really, 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 really intense accusations and called the police, called the Department of State, and my $500,000 investment was gone, and my $500,000 income just pulled right out from underneath me. I did not have myself protected. I didn't have everything in writing the way that I should have. And there was not much I could do. And I'm sure there was actually plenty I can do. But at that point, I had been doing the work. I started working with a coach probably about 10 years ago when I came up with that 7-year plan. I started studying Buddhism. I'm actually an ordained Buddhist priest and an ordained meditation teacher about 20 years ago. But the thing is, I had this very intense spiritual practice at home and on my mat, but I wasn't taking it into the rest of my life. I wasn't whole. However, I had, prior to this Zoom ambush, I had really begun working. The COVID was really good for me. Okay. I got to work. And one of the things that happened through COVID was I had founded, because, industry leader, of course, founded my local business council. And so I was no longer the chairwoman, but I get all the emails and all the, the messages and so on. And all these businesses were freaking out. And so I got to work. But I also realized like my family and everybody else was kind of freaking out. And I like tripled down on the deep, heavy work, started doing shadow work, realized alcohol was a mooring line for me, and I needed to stop. And, took all of my rituals and intensified them into like 2 to 3 hours a day of me time, meditating, journaling, started doing Kundalini yoga, all these different things. And so when this Zoom ambush happened, I was ready. I knew immediately. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't angry. I wasn't anything. I knew that this was the universe telling me, you have more to go. You're not there yet. And to get there, this is the path. And so I shifted immediately, went all in, started my coaching business without any capital and with this whole real estate community spreading rumors like you wouldn't believe. And I stayed loving, kind, not judgmental, not angry regarding the whole circumstance, not concerned what people thought of me. I know who I am. I know what I've done. And, taking all of those tools and embodying them. And that's the kind of coach I want to be. So I have obviously no regrets for my journey and all that I have been through, because it enables me to really have an understanding of almost any situation anyone can go through. I've been there and done that, or something similar. If it's not a similar scenario, the feelings, the emotions, right? I've been through so many different things in my life and have experienced and overcome so much that's why I know I am a way shower, and that's what I'm meant to do. So here I am, living in what I call soulful prosperity. My bank account is not caught up to where it was, and I don't even think about it. There's not a question around money. The only question for me is, how can I be as present as I can be in this moment? And how can I be living in joy, curiosity, creativity, and grow from that place?
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
was a lot.
No, it's perfect. Thank you so much for sharing all that. There's a bunch of things that I wrote down here that I think can be so powerful. So the first thing to be with for our audience, I think your story just beautifully captures how much life can change. And this idea that regardless of how life appears right now, when we're in the thick of something, it feels hard, it feels scary, it feels painful, it feels like it's going to last forever. But we know from experience, like that's not how it works. It never lasts forever. These hard times, they come to pass, they don't come to stay. And so when we can recognize in Jen's story, some people are listening and they go, oh, wow, yeah, I've been there, I've been there, I've been there. And other people might be listening going, wow, I haven't been through anything like that.
Yeah.
And there's hard times in the future and there's beautiful times in the future. And just recognizing that you see somebody's life now, like you said, in soulful prosperity, really just in love with your life, and you see the arc that your story took, and you just see each thing helped you become the person you are now, and they helped you grow so that you can help others. And the thing is, you wouldn't be who you are now if you hadn't gone through the experiences you went through. So you said
No.
being a way shower, and I wrote down next to that, what if our audience could take in that that's a choice? You know, the idea that if we just literally play with the words, I'm going to be the type of version of me that can show the way, both to me and to others by being the change I wish to see.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
you know,
Which
if
is
we,
why I'm not afraid to come on and talk about, my past and, where I spent most of my life. And I coined this phrase called shadow why. And I was successful and achieving, and on the outside, it looked like I had it all, but I was operating out of shame. And so the way shower has replaced that shame, because I do understand that this journey has a purpose, it has a reason. And I can see my hand in in parts of it, of course, right? Because it's all choices. But I do believe that I've still always made the best choices that I could in the circumstances and situations that I was in to lead me to where I am today.
yeah,
Uh, But
yeah,
that shame is not sustainable. So if you're, running away, right? The shadow why is when we're either running away, we don't want God, we don't want anybody to know who we really are. So we have to like outwork and outperform everybody, which is easy for me. I just can outwork anybody. Like even now when I'm in my like divine feminine phase where I can go soft and easy, I still outwork everybody. So that was easy for me. But I sacrificed my children in many ways, although I thought I truly believed I was doing it for them. Like I love them so deeply. But the other shadow why is when you're running towards something, right? I have this ideal version, da, 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 da. Both are so rigid and really cut you off from what the universe may really have in store for you. So getting into that place of just deep trust and faith and intuition and following the light, following the energy, finding the joy, finding the curiosity, getting creative after all your basic needs are met, of
yeah,
course,
yeah.
is the ultimate.
It reminds me of a quote. I didn't come this far only to come this far. And
Yes.
for our
And that's the
listeners,
blessing because
yeah,
anybody else, like if my business partner, thank you, Phil, I love you, and I wish nothing but the best in the world for you. Had that situation not happened, I would have spent probably the bulk of my life fighting for this fiefdom, right? Fighting for this, you know, number one real estate company, $1 billion in sales, and all these things that are beautiful. But when you're doing it under the guise of the shadow eye to prove who I am, I already am, right? That's the difference. So it's not that the goals are not good, but identifying your values, knowing who you are.
Jen, your voice just went out. Yeah, there was no, I'm not sure why the mic went out. But while you're fixing it, I'll just respond to something that you were sharing. I come from a space of when I said I didn't come this far only to come this far. We're all in different, let's say, chapters of our life. And so we see our life like a book. And it's coming from a space of whatever chapter you're in, it might be hard. It might be really difficult right now. But if you take one chapter out of any book and you pick the chapter that's the scariest, or you pick the chapter that's the most difficult, that one chapter by itself can be scary, depressing, disheartening, whatever it might be. But that one chapter is a low point in the story that will eventually lead to the resolution and to this, like the peak. And so if we come from that space, everything can change when you recognize the present moment is always pregnant with the next moment. And if you want a better tomorrow, you have to create a better today. And the only way to do that is to create a better now. And so you always have the power. You're in the seat of that. And then the last thing is this idea that everyone around you is freaking out. And you said, I doubled down on the work. And I love that because when you least feel like doing something is often when you would most benefit from it. When you think that everyone around you is the problem, that's usually a sign that it's you. And so if we come from the space of recognizing, I need to double down. What's my practice? How can I show up in such a way that the best of me comes through? And so I want to just test to see if your mic is back. Can you try speaking? Yeah, I can't hear you at all. Hmm. I'm gonna pause the recording and see if we can fix this.
So,
All right, all right, we're back, and her mic is working.
so as far as the way shower and all these things, one of the things that I have learned with the difficult circumstances that I have been through in life and continue to go through, there was more breakage, right? I am now this, person who was the love of my life. Um, a pattern was revealed to me with this business partner breakup. And I realized that I was in a place where I was doing the same thing with my husband. I was like doing everything, fixing, controlling, out of love, but still it's selfish motivation because I figure if I do all this, then he's never going to leave me and never going to hurt me. Well, that wasn't the case. I got very deeply hurt. We can deal with that, right? I'm definitely not a proponent of like, just get divorced or anything like that. But I learned that about myself, that most of my relationships were me overgiving, overdoing to the detriment of myself. And so my point here is this is where I discovered anti-fragility. So it's not only do you pick the chapter of your life and say, oh, that was the most difficult, or this, or the next chapter that comes up and these things get thrown at you, you get to a point where you're actually looking forward to these challenges because you're going to be a better version of yourself on the other side. And so viewing it that way, and there's so many tricks and hacks that you can do that, like pretending it's a movie, right? The hero's journey, the heroine's journey, right? So what are these monsters that I need to, beat?
Yeah.
What do I need to do? What dragons do I need to slay? This is, taking on that perspective instead of, clinging to the, there's nothing wrong with negative emotions. To every negative, there is a positive. So find the gift, find the positive. When the negative is there, look for that. That's shadow work, right? When there's the negative, find the positive. When there's the positive, embrace the negative. You can't deny either, because when you do, you're denying your full potentiality. And so whoever's listening, whatever you are going through, I promise, inject some joy in it. Figure out the silver lining. What is the blessing? What is the lesson here? What version of myself am I going to be on the other side of this? And be excited for that, because I never really thought that I was capable of being the kind of person that I am. I live impeccably. in this moment. That doesn't mean that there's not stuff that I have to clean up or things that I have to do, but right here, right now, in this present moment, my intentions, who I am, my actions, my choices are impeccable. And that,
Yeah. Can you speak to, you mentioned being anti-fragile. What does that mean to you? For our audience who's not familiar with that term.
it means looking forward to challenges. And so basically, you can be fragile, right? Or if you get kicked, you're going to be broken. And then you could be strong, which I prided myself on my entire life. I mean, obviously, I was super strong. But what happens when you are strong, it's almost like you're asking to be tested and to be kicked and thrown and all these different things to see if you can be broken. And then when you get to anti-fragility, you realize I'm amazing. I am perfect no matter what. Circumstances do not make me, what other people think, any of that. My bank account, nothing of that. It all comes from within, and knowing that no matter what, I will move forward with faith and hope, and I always show up and as the best version of myself, and that whatever these challenges are, I'm going to be a more amazing version of myself on the other
Yeah.
side.
Yeah, the visual I love of this word is, for everyone, I think for at one point or another has experienced, whether you sent it or received it, or you've at least seen it, you see a box and it's got the tape on it and it says fragile. And so it'll say fragile, handle with care. And like Jen said, easily breakable. If you drop it the wrong way, if you even put it on the wrong side, it might break
Yep.
it. Now, anti-fragile for me, it's like the opposite in the sense of the more you kick this box, the stronger it gets. And so now it's coming from a space that are able to learn through and grow through anything that you go through. And as a result of that, you're stronger, wiser, faster, better off. And
Absolutely.
you're capable now of creating more of what it is that you want in the world.
Yeah, the only thing I would add that anti-fragility actually allows a little softness. That was something that I didn't have that luxury most of my life, so I was just strong.
Yeah.
But strong is still brittle. And so when you can get to that anti-fragility, it's not just about being strong, because hey, sometimes I'm tired. I had to say to my family recently, hello, can you guys check in on me sometimes? Like, I don't think anybody's ever asked me if I was okay in most of my life, like because I'm so strong.
Yeah.
But I don't really want to be so strong. I wanna be anti-fragile, where
Yeah.
I can be soft and I can have weak moments and know that that's okay.
Mm.
It doesn't, I'm not gonna break. Not gonna
Something you just said, I think is so beautiful for our audience to be with. Because either the person who's listening, this is you, or there's people in your life maybe that are like this. There's either you or somebody in your world appears really strong and appears like they don't ever need any support or need any check-in or need any help. And yet, like Jen was just saying, can you guys just please ask me how I'm doing? Because like I don't always feel that same way. And so in that same way, either are you willing to have the courage, if this is you, to make that known and ask for support, ask for the check-in, ask for the care and the love. And if it's somebody else in your world, what if you make the assumption that they're human too, just like you? And regardless of appearances, regardless of what persona, actor's mask in Latin, that they are putting on, putting
yeah,
forth, what if they're actually going through things too and they're kind of suffering quietly? And what if you
yeah.
checking in with them and asking how they're doing would actually mean the world to them?
Absolutely. I think
Yeah.
we should be checking in on everybody all the time, and this goes down to, this election we just went through. It's like, I just want to live in the space that whoever the outcome, which we know now, was Trump, that we pray for their well-being, we pray for their success, and we make sure that they're okay and we can support in any way that we can. And that goes for the leaders in our life that aren't necessarily on a presidential level, even those people you don't like or you don't enjoy, or just staying in that space. And we have to check on everyone as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know so much of in your bio, I read this, the word soulful prosperity. Would love for you to just open up on that. And what does that mean to you?
So soulful prosperity is a life that is aligned and when you're in your wholeness and that brings together whether that's business, your playtime, your relationships, your physical health, your spiritual health, they're in harmony. There's room for all of it. None of it is
Mm.
competing. Sometimes you're going to have to go all in on business, and then sometimes you're going to have to retreat and go all in on your family. And sometimes you're going to have a check and be like, okay, I really need to double down, triple down on my health routines. Really need to double down on my mental health routines, whatever it is, but it's all in harmony. And you have fulfillment and you have purpose and you're aligned with your values and you're living in joy and you're not operating from scarcity and fear like I did. You know, my shadow why was all based out of scarcity and fear. It's just not, even when you have it, all you're doing is worried about losing it. Well, guys, I lost it. I lost it all. And I'm living the best version of my life that I ever could have imagined. My relationships are deep and beautiful, not perfect. There's a lot of history. I'm on a mission to heal my ancestry at this point. Like, my bank account hasn't matched where it was yet, but yet my priority is healing my ancestry. It's not like, oh, I gotta get the bank account where it needs to be first and then do this, right? It's all in harmony. It all works together. And I know that, self-care, taking care of myself, putting myself first, and this gives you guys permission to do the same, is the ultimate space that I can be in, right? I'm a giver. I'm naturally a giver, even without the shadow why. But I was given from a place of depletion most of my life. And so if you're a giver like me, I had a coach, David Meltzer, love you, David. Um, he said to me immediately, you need to learn how to receive more than you give because your cup needs to be overflowing, overflowing, overflowing. I was like, that just completely changed my perspective. It is not selfish to take care of yourself and put yourself first. It is absolutely, if you're a way shower, if you're a giver, if you're any of these things, it is your duty, basically, to take care of yourself first. Like the oxygen mask, you got to put it on yourself first, and then you can help other people. And I really didn't learn that until 50.
Yeah. And one of the things with that, I think, the question, real simple to ask for our listeners, are you a wealthy man? Are you a wealthy woman? And you're going to answer that based on how you define wealth. And if
Yeah,
you define it based on, let's say, money and externals, like what the bank balance looks like, or a certain amount of net worth, or something like that, which is fine. But if you define it that way, you will not feel wealthy unless the external matches whatever that definition is. The challenge becomes, I remember hearing a Bob Marley quote. I've shared it on the podcast before, where this guy's, it's on YouTube, you can find it. The guy's interviewing Bob Marley, and the guy says, "Are you a rich man?" And Bob Marley says, "What do you mean by rich?" And the guy says, "Do you have a lot of money?" And Bob Marley goes, "Is that what it means to be rich?" And he says, "I have different riches." But this idea that you can be rich in family, you can be rich in quality time, you can be rich in happiness. Like, what are you abundant in? And if you're abundant in finances as well, beautiful. But
beautiful. Yeah,
recognizing that if you have a narrow definition of I'll be successful or I'll be wealthy when, but you've made it so externally focused, then you can have an amazingly like wonderful internal experience of life in terms of your mental, your emotional state, but you'll still define yourself as either poor or a failure or something like that. Versus what if you defined yourself from a space of, I'm gonna just off the top of my head, I am healthy and not healthy. I am wealthy when I wake up in the morning. I am wealthy when I feel peace in my heart. I am wealthy when I look in the mirror and I can genuinely say, I'm proud of you, of how you're showing
yes,
up in the world. Now,
yeah,
when I do those things, more than likely, the money shows up too, because I'm
yeah,
showing up at my highest and best and I'm doing the work that's in service of others. And I'm asking for support back and receiving, like you said, things
yeah,
change. But just be aware, where are we defining ourselves based on external factors that are sometimes in our control and sometimes not in our control? And where can we define ourselves first and foremost? By the internal, which means you can feel it now. Because
Yes.
if I define myself as I'm wealthy when, like the examples I just shared, I can be wealthy right now. And then I build the life that I want from the space of I am wealthy, which has a very different feel to it than if I'm basing it on the external and I'm not there yet. So that means by definition, like I'm either a failure or deficient or I'm not there yet, and I'm working toward it, which almost has like a repellent energy to it. And people
Yeah.
feel that and they don't necessarily want to be around that. And then you
Well,
get frustrated along the way.
you're not living in the present moment. You're
Yeah.
not grateful.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a little trick that I did. Like I make it sound like it was so easy when I got that Zoom call and, then my marriage to, I started to see the light and, um, there were some times where I did not feel wealthy and I didn't feel abundant. And so I had things like, I have a garden and I would go out and like count my peonies, count my tomatoes, count my zucchini, lay down, look up at a tree, look at all the leaves, count how many birds come through, look for butterflies. And it grounded me and it helped me recognize all the abundance, all the beauty that already is.
Yeah.
And so when you get yourself into this space, gratitude, you are now in the ultimate state for receiving.
Yeah.
And so when you are, even if you are able to accumulate the financial wealth, if you still have a void, you're still using crutches. You still don't have healthy, beautiful relationships around you. You can't spend an afternoon doing absolutely nothing and enjoy every moment of it. This is where true wealth is. Now,
Yeah.
I'm a workaholic. Okay. I work with business owners and entrepreneurs who are afraid that when I'm like, we're going to free up your time and give you more profit so that you can focus on building a life that nourishes your soul. Guess what? Sometimes for me, that's building another business. And that's okay. It's just about getting to that place where you feel good no
Yeah.
matter what.
Yeah, I'm reminded of a quote by Dr. Wayne Dyer, and he says, "Where is the peace and more is better?" And he says, "There is no peace and more is better." And then my
No?
own addition, more isn't better, more is just more.
Yeah.
And when we realize that I have defined and set up the rules here in such a way that I'm not going to ever be fulfilled now because there's always something out there that could be bigger, better, more by my own definition. And that's what it takes, which means I can't have it now. And like you said, when you can slow down and you can be in that space of gratitude, yes, there could be all this abundance that you would like in the future that's bigger than you have now. And are you even aware of all the abundance that's right now in your life currently that you're just overlooking? And the
Exactly.
thing is, when you can slow down and feel that, it just changes everything.
And now you're matching the version of yourself, the future version, the highest and best version of yourself right here, right now, in this very moment. And that's where the
Yeah.
abundance comes from,
Yeah.
is you're already there. I've been practicing timeline hopping.
Yeah.
Okay. New to this, but it is so powerful. So like, listen, it's not been easy, going through another divorce, another failed marriage. I have these things in my head, right? And then you got to come on and be like the best version of yourself and coach people to the highest level. I take about 5-10 minutes, tap into that highest and best version of myself, my future self, and I'm there and I'm able to be there. And so, yeah, sometimes I will go down to a lower frequency and a lower dimension. And sometimes I'll even allow myself, I go watch a movie and have a little ice cream and just stay there. But I know how to come right back. And that's where I spend most of my time. And for that, I'm eternally grateful for every single challenge that has ever come through my life.
Yeah. And what's the go-to ice cream flavor in those moments?
I'm actually, okay, only since I quit alcohol am I even an ice cream, or I love cheap gas station ice cream like King Cones. Okay, those things are amazing. I love Haagen-Dazs bars. I like anything with like toasted chocolate and caramel and peanut butter, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it's
but
perfect.
only since I quit drinking, and now it's
Yeah.
over 3 years. You would think that excuse would go, but no, I
Yeah.
like a little something
Yeah.
sweet.
That's
And
perfect.
like when you don't deny yourself that, you're not going to get addicted to it, right? Just like
Yeah.
emotions. So don't deny when there are, like, it's okay to even wallow for a little while. Allow yourself to feel the little depression or the anxiety or the anger and the fear. Recognize it. Give it a seat at the table. What are you trying to teach me? What am I not paying attention to? What do I need to learn in this circumstance? I have really learned that when anxiety, what people label as anxiety, pops up, for me, it's my intuition.
Mm,
It's something I'm not listening to, something I'm not doing, something that's a little out of sorts or just not right.
yeah.
So I need to sit with it
Yeah.
and say, okay, that's intuition is the greatest gift anyone could ever have. So here I spend, many years of my life, like I don't, once I started meditation, I don't get anxiety anymore, but I was just denying it while huge progress. I wasn't using heroin and crack or other things, right? Huge progress, but it wasn't whole, right? I was denying it, I was suppressing it. So we really shouldn't deny or judge, right? Just allow, sit with it, use your intuition, follow the light, follow the energy, and the next best right thing will always surface.
Yeah, I'm reminded of the metaphor of a car that, the if your seatbelt's not on or something, it starts beeping, or maybe there's something wrong with the engine and it starts making this
Right.
noise. And if you say, "What is that noise?" and then you go, "That's so annoying," and then you try to cut the wire to silence it, yeah, the noise goes away, but the problem continues to get worse. But if you can say, "Where am I feeling?" Like you said, the anxiety as an example, there's an alarm going off, and there's
Yes.
something telling you something's not right. And
Yes.
where are we ignoring that? And then using, whether it's a drug or whether it's alcohol or whether it's, food or something else, where are we using it to almost distract or to numb versus, like you said, to be with it? And when you be with it and you can move through it, there's like think of like a circle. There's a completion of that energy, and now you
Yes.
can move to the next level. Yeah.
Totally. I'm actually launching habit coaching. I believe it's going to be called untethered habit. I haven't figured it out, but something like
Yeah.
that. But it's going to be habit breaking and habit building coaching. And that's the thing. It's like you don't have to deny yourself the ice cream, right? If you're looking to quit an addiction. And I'm not talking to people who have like, serious drug addiction, serious alcohol addiction. I'm talking about habits that are holding us back from being the highest and best version of ourselves. If you have serious alcohol or drug addiction or sex addiction or gambling addiction, I highly suggest that you seek, professional help or a 12-step group or something like that. So I don't ever want to downplay that. But high performing people very often are using crutches and they actually are holding them back. You can't really run your best race with a crutch, can you?
Mm.
Absolutely not. And so, not, in the beginning, when you want to break certain habits, not denying yourself, but using alternatives like, okay, let me go meditate, let me go journal, let me take a walk, let me take a bath, let me do, any of those things that fill you with positive energy. And then if I still want the ice cream, I'm gonna have it.
Yeah.
And then if I still want a drink, I'm gonna have it. And but also recognizing physiologically, where am I at? What am I feeling? What's going on? Right? So that we're making conscious choices as opposed to just
Mm.
using the crutch.
Yeah. Can you say we're talking about, living your best life, showing up at the highest and greatest version of you, core values, knowing them, and then living from them. Can you speak to that?
So, yeah, core values are these, I said earlier, I really didn't know the difference between right or wrong. And I don't want to say that these are the difference between right and wrong, but you really get to identify who you are, what's important to you, and how you want to show up, right? So I have like courage, spirituality, integrity, curiosity, joy, like, and by the way, I changed my core values. I'll tell you a really quick story. So, you know how at the end of the year, everybody starts posting about the word of the year? What's your word of the year to set your intention? I spent like, when this became very popular, I was so judgy. I'm like, what is wrong with you people? Like, one word because I have so many words that like light me up, get me excited. I also don't have a favorite color, by the way. That's just who I am. Okay. Or a favorite type of music, or like I love a lot of things. And so I struggled with this. Then I think it was last year or maybe the year before, time flies. All of a sudden I realized it's gratitude. Grateful. That's it. That's my word, and it's never going to change. And guess what? When somebody says, "How are you?" my answer is grateful. Because you know what happens when someone says, "How are you?" The soundtrack starts going in your head. Well, and this and that. I'm good, right? But grateful encompasses it all. Because if you're not in a state of gratitude, you're not in a state of receiving. And by the way, you can't be sad and grateful at the same time. You can't be angry and grateful at the same time. It's not possible. And so that's kind of what living in your values is. It's not just taking, 5 words that represent values and sticking them on your website. I'm talking to you business owners and entrepreneurs and corporations that throw these things up, and then your actions are the complete opposite. You actually will be in more pain if you define values and then you are not aligned with them and you are not embodying them. This is where depression, anxiety, and anger and fear and scarcity comes from. I call it an integrity gap. And so it's going to take work if you decide, you know what, I want to define my values and I want to align my actions, my choices, and who I am. It's going to take some work. It's the most beautiful work that you will ever do.
Yeah. And so for our listeners, an exercise you can take on, I want you to just take inventory of the way that your life is currently lived and how it's been lived up until this point as it relates to how do you spend your time? How do you spend your money? What are the things that you actually do with your time? Shows what your priorities are. And so we can often say, nothing's more important than A, B, and C, whatever that is. But then you look at your life and like, is your life a reflection of what you just said? And
Oh,
if
yeah.
the answer is no, then you actually do have something, consciously or not, that you are putting ahead of that. But once you can
Yep.
shine the light on it, then you can
Yes.
change the way you're living. And
And
so,
then you're going to invite joy and you're going to invite freedom, and your intuition is going to grow from this because you are now in alignment.
yeah.
When I was a team leader at Keller Williams Real Estate, one of their mottos is family first. Beautiful motto, love it. But agents would come to me and they'd be like, family first is their excuse, right? Of why they weren't achieving their own goals. I wasn't the
Mhm.
type of leader that was like, I need you to hit this, like I wanted people to be the best version of themselves always. That was always important to me. And I would say, okay, show me your calendar. And there was no family on this calendar. So yeah, when you have time blocked and you're putting that phone on the other side of the house and you're taking this space and you're being present with your family, then you can come and talk to me about family first. Because you're not in alignment with it, it certainly can't be an excuse for why you're not succeeding. Because
Yeah.
like I said, that's harmony, right?
Mhm.
There's room for all of it. This time, we don't have enough time is a choice.
Yeah. Like when we understand our values, it becomes easier to understand when to say yes and when to say no.
Yeah,
And so if somebody's listening saying, but as an example, but my family is the most important thing to me.
yeah,
And so it's not saying, you're a liar. No, it's coming from a space of saying, I hear you, and I know that in your heart you believe that to be true. And the way your life is being lived is not a reflection of that. And what you're saying yes to and
guilty.
what you're saying no to
Yeah,
is not in integrity with what you're saying is most important to you. So then the
yeah,
question isn't, how do we blame, shame, and guilt the person? The question is, given now that you know that, how would you like to change your life going forward? How would you
yes,
like to lift and no, how would you like to shift the way you're living, and how would you like to rearrange what you've been saying yes to and what you've been saying no to? And when people realize that there's so much power in just being in integrity, first and foremost with yourself. So this is who I am, and this is what I stand for, and these are my values, what's most
yep,
important. Is your life a reflection of that? And if
yep,
it's not, Always start there. Always start there.
And it's beautiful. And by the way, or you can have your whole life blow up like mine did, and then you're kind of forced to do it. But that is not, that doesn't have to happen. Like you don't need to have these huge bottoms to realize that. And that's why I always say I'm grateful for that because so many people are living in mediocrity and just not happy and don't have a sense of purpose and fulfillment. And meanwhile, today I'm going to act like a 3-year-old when I find the most beautiful shell on the beach and be in awe and see it as a miracle and be so present to that. Um,
Yeah.
that's where I want to be.
Yeah, yeah. Something that I'd imagine we've touched on, and I still want to create space for it. How are our listeners? Some of them are creating a lot of flow in their life right now, whether they're aware of it or not. And some of them are creating a lot of, let's say, blockage to that flow, and they may not be aware of that. How do you find people create flow, and how do you find people block flow?
I think that the flow comes from the intuition, like really being able to listen to your body, listen to, your soul and your spirit and being aligned with those values and trusting that even in this very moment, it's not the outcome you wanted, but you were aligned with your values and you've been listening to your intuition and creating space. And if you want flow in your life, you really have to create space so that you can listen to that intuition and you can look for that light and be able to follow that energy. And that all really boils down to that trust and faith. And it took me a long time. I don't want to say I was what's it called? Agnostic when you don't believe in God. I won't ever say that that's what I was, but I had a hard time with religious words like faith and things of that nature. I don't anymore. So but I realized that this faith is not a faith in God, but yet now I understand that it is because I am God and God is me, right? This is what I truly believe. So the faith is in that you will show up and you will be aligned with your values and you will do your very best with what you can in this moment. And that's where that flow can come from. Letting go, surrendering, finding that light, finding the energy and following it and listening so deeply and creating that space to be able to do so.
Yeah. I find that one of the things that often gets in the way of flow is fear. And I think one of the primary fears that people have, especially just nowadays, is financial fears. And I know that's a big thing that you do with people, helping them free themselves of that. Can you speak to that for our listeners who are feeling that financial fear and uncertainty?
Guys, if you are an entrepreneur or business leader and you still have a question mark around money, you're going to suffer. You're going to struggle. You're not going to take the great risks that are going to have the great rewards. You're not going to enjoy it while you have it. You're going to always be chasing. And so getting to that place where knowing that there'll be times where, there's a lot of financial abundance and there may be times when there's not, but no matter what, you know who you are, why you're here, what your purpose is, and being able to be in joy and be grateful. Counting tomatoes really worked. Okay. And I have the most pathetic garden in the world. So it's not like I have this like, my mom, when she listens to this, is gonna laugh like, really, Jen? What, you should come to my house to count tomatoes because she's got an amazing garden, right? It didn't matter, like, just knowing and trusting and also just being grateful for what I have right now in this very moment. It always comes back to being able to be present right here, right now, and be grateful for it. And I kind of forgot the original question, but I think I answered it.
It's interesting because the idea we talked earlier about wealth and how we
Oh, fear
define
about
it.
money. Yeah.
Yeah. And this idea that if I'm grateful, I will in that moment feel wealthy. Now, of course, there's a practical component. We live in a society that money is required. And so coming from that space, yes, there may be stress around certain bills. There might be stress around certain things that need to happen with money, repairs in the home, whatever it might be. And at the same time, there are people who have 7, 8, 9 figures in wealth financially, let's say, and
Uh-huh.
some of them feel that void, some of them feel lack, some of them don't feel wealthy, they feel afraid of losing it.
Exactly.
And there's people who have that money and they don't feel that. And then there's people who have virtually nothing.
And
Yeah,
live.
I remember hearing this number has likely gone up since I heard it because I heard it when I was a teenager. But 70 to 75% of the planet lives on less than $2.50 a day.
Well, that's why I love the Dominican Republic. People say, why didn't you buy in Florida? And I'm like, Florida doesn't change my perspective.
Yeah.
When I'm here, I don't drive. I walk the half a mile to the main gate, rain or shine if I need to. And then I get on the public transportation. I shop at the little tiny little local uh, comadas and do my best to live like a local. And I mean, obviously, I have this beautiful condo right on the beach, so I'm beyond grateful for that, and I'll never forget that. But that perspective of just stripping it down to the simplest pleasures and the simplest joys is really where that wealth comes from. And you can't you just getting into that space of chasing and chasing and chasing, you're wasting so much beauty and love and joy around you because there's just not room to chase and enjoy those pleasures.
Mm. And so, if anyone's at this point in our conversation and they still have any belief around, I'm too old, it's too late for me, I failed too many times, whatever it might be, any message you have for them.
You can be whatever version of yourself you want to be right here and right now. It's a choice. And so when I say I live my life impeccably, it does not mean that everything is perfect. I still owe the IRS some money. I have some, this and I have some of that. It just, because my life was very complicated for a really, really long time. And because I was chasing and I was operating out of fear and scarcity and I was making decisions from that place and that space. And so right now, make the choice, visualize who you want to be, write it out, describe it, spend 10 minutes just visualizing all of it, tap into the emotions of what it feels like to be this version of yourself. And you are there. That's that timeline hopping that I was talking about. Because, yeah, sometimes if I look at some of the circumstances in my life, I could very easily go down to a low frequency. But I trust and know. And I had a little check. Listen, I was a single mom. Okay. Like there's lots of people out there, and no offense, but single mom is not dad takes the kid on the weekends and you get child support. Okay. Single mom means there's no father in the picture. Now, my youngest daughter, her father was in the picture. But I remember, before I really struck it in real estate, I remember, and so I have some of this ability innately, but I want to share it with you because it's choice as well. But I would be driving and I did not have enough money to put gas in my car. And somebody taught me if you used, I think the credit, it would only charge $1 for today and you could fill up your tank and then, tomorrow it would come through. Whatever. I had all these things, but I just remember those feelings of like, it's the end of the world. Like, this is the end of the world. Like, I don't have the money for the mortgage. I don't have money for gas. It's all over. It's all crumbling. And then I taught myself, you are going to be laughing about this just a couple of days from now. And then it always happened. I always got through it. And then always in a couple of days, there would be a song that would come on and joy would fill my heart and the freedom returned. And this was in a way back when I was nowhere in the space, but I sensed it, right? I guess that way show, or like I sensed it that I'm always going to be okay. I was always able to somehow ground myself to that thought. And if you can ground yourself to that thought, not only is everything going to be okay, but it can be anything that you want it to be. And that's the other thing. When I start like beating myself up, like, I'm not where I should be. I should have 10 clients that pay 30,000 a month and I should this and I should that, right? Then I take an inventory. How did I start my day today? Oh, exactly how I wanted to. How did I do this? And how did I show up for my family? Oh yeah, impeccably. And those problems that you have, are you doing everything in your, yep, everything, taking that inventory and of where you're at right here and now. And whatever you don't like, just move forward with fixing and trust and faith. But you have to show up as the best version of yourself right here, right now, in this moment. But it is a choice, and it's a choice anybody can make. And I promise you, when you let go and you surrender, it's all there for you. It's already here. We're blocking it. We're getting in the way. We're preventing it from happening.
Yeah, I'm reminded of there's a Winston Churchill quote. He says, "When you're going through hell, keep going." And
There's a
this
good
idea that
country song like that too.
and so there you were in that, the gas station and that story of, okay, I filled up the tank, but what's going to happen? Like, how am I going to do this? And you said, though, it always worked out. And
It
this
always
idea that as an invitation to everyone who's listening to reflect on your own life and recognize the very fact that you're listening to this conversation right now means everything up until this moment you've survived and it's worked out. Now, that doesn't mean it worked out the way that your ego wanted it to. It doesn't mean that it all was easy, but you
right.
you made it. Like you got through, you survived. And
And
the
you're a better version of yourself. Now, if you got through things intentionally, doubling down on your practices, filling yourself with the things that make you feel good, alive, and enjoy, and in that space, and being in gratitude when these difficult circumstances, you became a better version of yourself in spite of yourself. Imagine when you get into this anti-fragile space and you're like, you're eating stress like energy bars, like, come on, bring it on, let's go, we can do this. And who am I going to be on the other side of this? It's incredible.
yeah,
Whoa. And so that's the space. And I understand, depression, anxiety, all these things run deep in my family and were the really the space that I lived in for a really long, long time and then I got meditation in my life and it was great while I was on the mat, but I did not embody these principles. And so I get it. And that can still slip in, but I just like that get myself to the highest and best version of myself, vibrating at a higher frequency. And the best hack of all of it is just gratitude. Just find some things to be grateful for right here, right now, and relish in them.
yeah, amen to that. And so as
We
we
could talk
wrap up,
forever,
Jen,
couldn't we?
yeah, as we wrap up, what is going on in your world right now that's exciting you that you're working on or working towards?
Oh, so excited about this habit coaching, which I am going to be, like I have it hashed out, but I will be finalizing in the next week or two while I'm down here doing my deep work. I'll be launching 2 books in 2025. One,
Mm,
Anti-Fragility, Becoming Anti-Fragile will be one of them. And The Shadow Why will be the other one.
yeah.
And but the coaching is something I'm super excited about. My Beyond Limits program that I launched last year has been amazing, which is specifically for entrepreneurs and business owners who, are stuck, um, built themselves a golden cage and they're just not happy and they feel like they don't have any time. And, I have to micromanage and do everything and hating their employees, not loving their clients. Yeah, this is the program for you. So I'll be continuing that and, rebranding, all kinds of like awesome, fun stuff that I am so looking forward. I'm not the type to be like, oh, 2025 is my year, but it is.
And with that in mind, for our listeners, every year it has the opportunity to be your
Yep.
year. And so the beauty for me is, again, regardless of if this year was your best year yet, and if this year was average or if this year was horrible by your own estimation, the good news is that you always have another chance, and the chance starts right now. And so it's always, what am I
It's the
willing to
choice.
do differently?
Yep.
And it could be reach out for help. It could be
Yes.
put yourself in a different environment. It could be surround yourself with different people. It could be tune into a different podcast or a different book or start doing those things if you're not already. Whatever it might be, asking for the support if you haven't been. But there's so much that can be done. But again,
So
it starts
much.
right now. And so, how can our listeners learn more about you, connect with you, find you?
You can go to jennifermaher.com, JENNIFERMAHER.com. I'm Prosperous Jen with 2 N's, JENN on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me wherever. Connect, reach out. I offer free deep dives if you're curious about how to get into soulful prosperity. Um, just reach out.
Yeah.
I am accessible.
Wonderful. I will have all the links in the show notes. And if
Cool.
this conversation has served you, first and foremost, please share it far and wide. Even if you share it with one person, that one person's life can be forever changed as a result of that gift that you gave. And if this has resonated with you, please leave a testimonial, a review, YouTube comment, whatever it is, wherever you're listening to this, share anything that you might have learned from it, what you got from it. Helps the algorithm, helps people find us, and I really appreciate it. Jen, anything you'd like to say before we wrap up?
Just love how you put a nice little call to action in there. It's good.
Oh, thank you.
Smart, wise.
Thank you.
Yes.
And so I called this conversation and this podcast Transformation Starts Today. And the reason why I call it that is I found that most people's favorite day to change their life is tomorrow. And that's why they stay stuck. But you can be different. You can take what Jen and I spoke about today and you can apply even one thing. And that one thing can shift your entire world. What could be possible for you, for example, if you live today with 1%, 5%, 10% more gratitude than you had yesterday? What if the next hour you made a commitment? I'm going to take 60 minutes to actually notice as many things around me as possible that could put a smile on my face or that could bring joy to me. And you will feel infinitely richer and more wealthy as a result of it. All my love to you, wishing you the absolute best to you and your family. And I look forward to our next conversation. Take care. Thank you for being with us today. If this conversation served you, it would mean a lot if you left a review and shared this with anyone who may benefit. An extraordinary life without regret is available to you now. Choose it. It's your time.